in today's video, we're going to go over our second quarter reading stats. Quickly, before we dive into more detail on the books, which I'm going to be pretty brief over just because I do have reviews for the books and I also have monthly stats where I go in more detail. So this will be pretty brief, but before we go into that, let's go into the stats. I have read 31 books and we have DNF'd 2 for this quarter. The average time on my TBR has been 10.39 months. The average rating has been 3.48. The average page count is 370 pages per book for a total of 11,474 books. Now, going into our yearly goals, we're just going to do a quick check-in on those. Those are not stats that I go over every month, but I do follow up and see where we are at in each quarter check-in. Our goal is to read 72 books this year. We are currently at 58. We're doing just fine. I have a reread goal of 1 book per month or 12 books over the year. There's so many books that I genuinely enjoy and I want to read. So I am putting that as a goal so it gives myself, so I feel like if I want to do that and I do that, it makes me feel okay about it, okay? It makes me feel okay. I am one of those people that I feel like I need to always be reading something new, even though I want to go back and read what I love, just because I'm worried I'm going to miss out on the next book that I'm going to love. With that being said, we have read 10 of 12 rereads. We did not reread any books in the month of June. I do want to read at least 10 nonfictions this year, and I'm at 3. Do need to pick up on that one. I want to get to 60% of my physical TBR read. I am at 56%. I'm trying really hard not to bring in an excess of books just because I can, but being conscious about the fact that I have plenty of books that I really want to read and are important to me that I haven't got to, and to make those a priority. And then I have a goal of 23 books that I picked out that I would like to read in 2023. And of that list, I will put them on the screen. I have read 7 of the 23. Instead of going through over all the books, I'm going to hit, just because I feel like that's really repetitive, I'm just going to talk about my least favorite, my most favorite of every month. And do it a little bit more like books like, well, you know, my most favorite, my least favorite, maybe anything that surprised me or disappointed me. So let's jump in first to the month of April. I guess if we're talking about, let's start off with our biggest disappointments. The biggest disappointment would have to be our DNF. Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. I just could not get myself to connect. I read about 50% of this book. Let's see, do I still have the bookmark in it? Yeah, I still have the bookmark where I left off. I'm about 50% of the way through this book. For some reason, I knew I was learning about these characters. I just didn't care. I don't know what it is. This is a book that I think maybe I was feeling rushed to reading it, so maybe I'll go back to it. So I'm not gonna like necessarily declutter it or anything like this, but this would be my biggest disappointment for the month. I guess my biggest surprise would be I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I had a feeling I was gonna like this just through all the things that I had heard and seen on it. However, the amount of humor that she adds into such a deep, intense topic was really well done. Her story was really well written. It was very intriguing. It was fast-paced. Like, I read this in a day, so I would say it definitely surprised me way more than I anticipated that it was going to. One little caveat, I did have a reread in the month of April, Night Swim. Absolutely fantastic book. So as far as like favorite books, I am going to take out any rereads. With that being said, my favorite book for the month of April was The Thicket by Noelle W. Ihili. Such a fast-paced horror book, short, sweet, to the point. I just loved it. The twist at the end was very well done, but I loved the stories. I loved the characters, and I just loved how she wrote it. I think she did such a fantastic job. I'm so excited to go and read all the other work that she did. I did actually a favorite authors video, and I do mention her in it and kind of my thoughts on potential future favorite authors, and she's definitely on that list and some of the things that I want to read from her. My least favorite that I actually read would be Trust by Hernan Diaz. I want to preface, this is not a bad book. This is historical fiction. It's not my type of book. It was a little slow-paced. I just wanted more. I didn't like the fact that you don't really get the answers at the end. That's not for me. However, I do think it's a well-written book. The storyline is great. The cover is absolutely stunning. And I would still say it'd be good, especially for historical fiction readers. It just wasn't for me, and probably my least favorite of the month. Now we're going to move into the month of May. This one is a twofold. Biggest disappointment and least favorite. Witch World. This is a reread. And when I read this the first time, I enjoyed it. I did have some issues with it, but upon reread, those issues were just glaring. This is definitely a book I have no intention of reading again. It went from a 4-star to a 2-star. I don't want to keep this book. I'm going to get rid of it. It's a YA book. I didn't think that some of the things in the book was like, that's not what I would want my child to be reading at that age, or what I felt I would have wanted to be reading or be relating to at that age. I do like the idea of there being a witch world and a normal world, all of those things. I thought that was fantastic, but this is definitely not a book that I enjoyed. My biggest surprise is definitely The Secret Runners of New York. This was a cover buy. However, it's a YA dystopia, so I feel like those are two big things that tell me you're not going to enjoy it or you're going to kind of gut through it. But the cover got me. I had to do it, and then I read it, and it was phenomenal. I loved the premise. I loved how he wrote through the different worlds and the portals and the back and forth and the future and the back, and I just think overall this was such a fantastic book. But this is about a set of kids who find this portal in these tunnels under New York, and they can go into the future where the world has ended, and they know it's coming. They can see it in the future. Such a fantastically written book. Highly recommend this book, and definitely surprised me. My favorite book for the month, excluding rereads, because obviously that'd be The Ice Coven, would be Matt Haig's The Midnight Library. This woman goes into this library after she decides she wants to end her life, and in this library is an infinite number of books where each one is her life if she had made even just the smallest of choices. I thought the story of this, the message behind it was so well done. I liked going into these stories and seeing it from the character's point of view. I thought the character development was good. Overall, a very good, solid book, and I enjoyed it. Now let's go into June's book. I feel like, again, biggest disappointment has to be Termination Shock. I didn't enjoy it. It's not my kind of book. I will link my review of it up there. Was my blind date, just because I don't think you want to hear me talk about how, once again, this is not my kind of book, so that's why I was disappointed in it. My biggest surprise, I think, would be The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I read Under the Whispering Door in May by T.J. Klune, and I enjoyed it, but I wasn't as thrilled with it as I was, so I was kind of going into this expecting that, and while I think they're very similar and they're both very character-driven books, I definitely connected more with these characters in this story, and I think he did just such a phenomenal job with getting his message across, and that character development, and truly getting invested in all that, and so I think he did a fantastic job. My favorite book, hands down, Dark Corners, Megan Golden. Are We Surprised? Second, the Rachel Crawl series, follow-up to The Night Swim, which I already said, if I could pick rereads, would probably be my favorite book that month. But again, such a fantastic book, great character development. I love how she does her pacing and the intricacies of her story. She just does such a fantastic job. I loved how she developed Rachel Crawl more, but you could still truly see who Rachel Crawl was and grow with her through the story and all the changes she was going with. So, fantastic book, recommend it. Those will be the highs and my lows of the second quarter of my reading stats, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.